Hey, y'all, it's former State Representative Attica Scott. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Ask Attica. We are talking today about the 8th of August. The 8th of August, from my understanding when I was growing up, is that it is Kentucky's Emancipation Day. Now, depending on where you live in the Commonwealth, you may see the 8th of August as something differently. So I encourage you to do your own research and ask your own questions to the elders in your community about what the 8th of August actually is. But today we're going to have a conversation about freedom. We're going to have a conversation about where we need to go from here, and we're going to lift up some leaders in our community. So tune in live on Stay Live Streams, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you. Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative. They're asking me about everything, local, state, federal, all the time. How do I do this? How do I do that? Why can't I get a speed hump? What's going on with the consent decree? Hey y'all, welcome to Ask Attica. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday morning. Hey y'all, welcome to this week's episode of Ask Attica. Thank you so much for tuning in. If our offices were open this week, I would be on my lunch break like many of you. We have some wonderful guests with us today that I'm going to introduce in just a moment, but today's episode is focused on the 8th of August. I grew up knowing it as Kentucky's Emancipation Day. Of course, I'm going to ask our guests their perspectives on the 8th of August, but I want to start by introducing them and also saying thank you, of course, to Black Coffee for always being open to us having the conversation here at their second location, Black Coffee 2. So first I want to introduce the councilwoman, Shameka Parrish-Wright. You see, she got her hair all curly. You know, her daughter did it. She showed up because it's the right one on the right day. So we'll hear from Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, who represents District 3. Is that correct? Did I get that correct? Right. Okay, all right. And then we have the Bianca Austin with Families United, correct? Is that correct? Families United? Yes. And Miss Bianca's been out on these front lines for a while trying to lead us toward justice, y'all. She just said too long. So we're going to hear more from her about the work she does. And then, of course, we have the Dr. Trinidad Jackson, who, I mean, listen, when it comes to introductions, there is no introduction, right? He is doing it all to try to set our people free, showing up in all the places where he is needed, where justice is needed. And thank you so much for that leadership, Dr. Jackson. Yes. So I want to start with a question. You know, I always ask my favorites this question, so I'd love to hear from y'all, and we're going to share this mic. What is bringing you joy today?
I thought about this because I knew she would ask me this question, and I thought about it, and I said, what's bringing me joy is that this is an amazing time to be alive, but it's also a scary time to be alive. But I'm focused on the organizing, the building, the connecting with people, and that brings me joy because fresh off of vacation, this is the first thing that I'm doing with my day, and it's centered around people and why Kentucky is worth fighting for, and especially why Black Lives Matter.
What brings me joy today is celebrating the right one on the right day. So I've been excited all week through just going through a lot of ups and downs. Life been life, and to just be able to come out and give flowers, and when flowers are due, I listen. This is the right one on the right day. But significantly about today is about just continue to fight for freedom. Continue to be a natural born freedom fighter. Right. Just don't be scared to say when something's wrong. Be boisterous. We cannot continue to be silenced. There is no right or wrong these days when it comes to justice. So that's what's bringing me joy today, is celebrating the right one on the right day.
Excellent.
Yo, what's up, good people? Shout out to Ask Attica. Appreciate the invite. Congratulations, Councilwoman. Thanks for making this happen for me. And nice to meet you, Bianca. And shout out to the audience. Hey, make some noise right quick. Make some noise. But, yo, what's bringing me joy, one, right, is we're here to talk about the 8th of August, freedom, liberation, what that means to us. And it's a very special person who, planted the foundation for my existence, which is my grandmother, Ayana, and she lives in heaven now. But yesterday was her heaven day, right? Yesterday was her transition day, and she departed from us in the flesh in 2013. And so every August 7th, I celebrate her, I honor her, I have a party for her. All the people call me and say, "Yo, happy heaven day to your angel, to your grandma," so people know her through me, and they've never met her. That also coincides with the full moon that started yesterday, and that's a big part of my spirituality. And so I feel like that's a blessing. I'll be, celebrating her and also engaging in my manifestations for this upcoming lunar cycle over the next couple of days. So for me, that's what's bringing me joy today.
Okay, listen, I love it. That's just a preview of what you're going to get from this amazing panel of folks. So before we take a break, I want to get into this question. Today is the 8th of August, Kentucky's Emancipation Day. I'd love to hear from y'all. What does the 8th of August mean to you? And connect that to freedom and what freedom means to you. So those two questions. What does the 8th of August mean to you, and what does freedom mean to you?
You're going to tell us yours?
I can.
Okay. We can ask Attica. All right. The 8th of August means to me a new beginning, a fresh start, but then a reminder of how much our history, how much being a woman, especially in times like now, are important. I actually moved to Louisville on the 8th of August in 2002. Pregnant with my fourth daughter, 3 kids in tow, and all I had to my name was a storage facility back in Cincinnati, Ohio, and a beat-up Buick that we had to sleep in when we ran out of money. But I won't forget, I pulled up to a gas station downtown. It was in the West End. I pulled up to the gas station. Literally, I needed to transfer money, so I literally only had like $5 to my name. I get out of my car, a gentleman, and I go into the gas station, leave my kids in the car, and I asked to put this $5 on this pump. And a black man was behind me, and he said, and I don't even remember his name or face, but he said, "That's all you got?" I said, "That's all I got right now until I can get the other money." He said, "I'm giving this," which so you put $10 with my $5. But then he said to me, "Happy NIGGA Day." And at that moment, I was like, what the hell? I had never heard of August 8th. So because I had never heard of it, I didn't know what it was and what it meant. But I immediately started doing my research. But the first thought was, where the hell did I just move my kids to? And so when he said that, it made me research and learn more about August 8th. And now it's a significant thing. This event that's planned for me, I didn't set the date. They set the date for the day. The irony is, this is the exact day that I moved to Louisville and started my social justice work here in Louisville. So I'm committed to fighting for Louisville, committed to fighting for Kentucky, and August 8th will always be significant for what it meant to people who didn't learn that they were free for so long. And what I know in Paducah, they hold it down. It's a whole big festival. And my goal is to one day get there and celebrate on the ground where people found out about their status on freedom. So it's freedom.
August 8th, to me, is just remembering your sacrifices and your dedication. And we need, like Shameka said, we need to make this day a day that we celebrate nationally within our communities. Juneteenth. Education is so important, and we must continue to identify these historical days. Just even, I've never been to jail until I was targeted and took into jail. You know what I mean? And it was just like for somebody to take that freedom from you and to continue to do it, it's hard, right? So it's important for days like this for us to remember why we're here, get the help we need to continue to move forward, remember our purpose. Man, and when you think about it, like, I get emotional just thinking about it, because it's like, I know, what if I knew this 20 years ago? It took for my niece to get killed to be like, enough is enough. And I don't want that for nobody else. I don't want that, because I see the struggle like I was raised in, and I've been around police brutality my whole entire life. From a baby, I can remember my brothers getting their ass whooped. I can remember my sister Tamika getting her ass whooped by the police, and it was accepted. It was like, okay, you did what you did. Like, okay, shut up. At least you ain't in jail. But looking back, it's like, why didn't I take a stand? Why didn't I say nothing? Why didn't I do nothing? Things could be different. So it's just a reminder. I just want to remind people and just educate people, and, that my fight is not for nothing, that we're going to keep this fire lit. So that's what August 8th means to me.
Yo, so appreciate that. Now you got my mind back to my, scuffles with the police. I'm from St. Louis, y'all. So you mentioned something, right? You mentioned how normalized it was. And to me, that's what it was, going through the school system, getting suspended or put out of class. And even my interactions with the police, it was just like, shit, this the way life is, right? NWA, fuck the police. And so it wasn't until, I got older and began to be exposed. It actually, I had to travel thousands of miles away to Ghana, West Africa, to begin to understand history and the value of us as black people and our humanity, and that our history didn't start at slavery, right, or enslavement, but we had, value, dignity, possession, it's community prior to that. But for me, though, when I think about August 8th in particular, and, many communities across the state celebrating that date, I think about the cliche, delayed but never denied, right? And so black people made that happen, right? So when we say delayed but never denied, whether it's justice in front of it, whatever precedes that statement, it wasn't given to us, right? We had to fight for it. And so for me, it represents the fact that, supremacist forces continue to attempt to hide what is attributed, what is necessary for our freedom from us, right? And so when we think about August 8th, 1865, and we also think about August 8th, 2025, what do we have in common? We still have supremacist forces in elected seats in our school boards, state legislatures, and federal landscape who are attempting to hide the truth, right? And so what does that look like right now? That looks like anti-DEI policies. That looks like so many other things that are being outlawed, that are being banned, that are being legislated against our psychological freedom, right? And so what that is psychological warfare, essentially, to keep us from saying, yo, hold on, I can identify something that's wrong with this situation, because when we identify shit, then we tear shit down and we create liberation and what it means for us, what it feels like, looks like, smells like, tastes like for us. And so, again, for me, it represents the delayed but never denied aspect, and how we must continue to say, yo, what else are we identifying in this landscape that we need to uncover, that we need to fight against in order for us to create the beauty and the liberation that we want for us, created for us, by us. So
That's right. Message.
Well, thank you for joining this episode of Ask Attica. We'll see you again next week, because apparently that was the mic drop end of the conversation. But thank y'all so much. And so they asked me, to respond to the question about what is bringing me joy today. And I would say a couple of things. One is remembering that people will lift up your name in love and kindness and joy in places that you're not present. So that's how we got part of this panel here today. But also to know that this is an amazing group of people who said yes when I asked. So that's bringing me joy today. Also, what you keep hearing alluded to by the councilwoman and by Bianca is that this evening we're going to be honoring the councilwoman Shameka Parrish-Wright. That's why it's the right one she's the right one on the right day. For all she is blushing, look at that. For all the ways in which she gives and shows up for all of our communities, not just one particular community, but for all of our communities. So we're going to honor her today for that, because people should receive their flowers while they're still with us. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to dig deeper into this conversation about freedom and about justice. Again, thank y'all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Ask Attica.
Through every note, every performance, the arts connect us. The arts connect us through joy and through awe, bridging cultures and generations. From intimate theaters to the grandest stages, the arts bring us together, reminding us that we're never truly alone. When we experience the arts, we experience each other. Kentucky Performing Arts. The arts connect us.
All right, y'all, welcome back to this episode of Ask Attica, a special edition on this 8th of August, Kentucky's Emancipation Day, known in different parts of the state for different reasons. So please do your research because I think there's power when you do your own research. So it's amazing when people put the information out to you and for you, but also for you to dig into it yourself. Yeah, right? So important. So as a reminder, our guests are Councilwoman Shameka Parrish-Wright, Bianca Austin, and Dr. Trinidad Jackson. So my next question for y'all is, in this day and time, how are y'all showing up for racial justice? So, if y'all can respond to that question for folks.
Okay. That's a huge question because I feel like I told people that I focus on issues that connect folks to poverty, dismantling poverty, because I feel like that's something that we can achieve in our lifetimes. There are tangible things we could do. We all can, at this moment, get up from this table, go anywhere in this Goodwill Center, Opportunity Center, or even go outside, choose someone and change their life. I mean, that's how close poverty is, and that is why I wanted to focus on that, because when I was growing up and going to college and learning about the social justice movements, I said, where do I fit? As a teenage mom, as a single mom, as a person trying to figure things out, where do I fit? And I had all these icons before me, both locally, statewide, nationally, internationally, and I didn't see myself line up. I think sometimes our work is really hard to come into because there's a lot of know-it-alls in this work. This work isn't absent of all the isms, classism, sexism, racism within the movement. It sounds strange, but it's true. And so I didn't know where I fit as this poor woman coming in with all these kids and trying to figure things out. And so I tried to take positions over the years. I've been in the nonprofit sector for over 25 years, and that centered me connected to the people that are closest to the issues and closest to the problems on the ground. And I said that racist practices are woven into our American system in so many ways that you literally can choose an area and say education, as Dr. Jackson talked about, faith, as we talk about in policing and the history. So then I said, what brings us together? And I think that sometimes it's used in a way that takes away from the work of healing and trying to work with making people whole. And I wanted to be a part of that because you can see it. And so anyway, I feel like I'll always fight against racist practices in our systems and all the things that are connected to it. And but I had to first figure out who I was in it, because the people who had hurt me most directly looked like me. They were my skin color. And so I grew up in Cincinnati and over the Rhine, where I grew up with poor white people and poor black people. So I always grew up in these mixed environments. But at home, I got the warnings about police and how I show up and what to say and all those things. So there were so many contradictions that I found it hard. But it wasn't until I moved to Louisville and I took a course at U of L that I really started to think about where racism showed up in my life. And once I did that, I knew it was my mission to help not just young people, but seasoned people understand, because sometimes we perpetuate racist systems and racist practices. I see it in nonprofit work. I see it all the time. And it bleeds over. And then the money part is used as a distraction. So for me, I think that everything needs a racial equity lens. I'm all about equity and fairness. And I believe we should be practicing that. We should be checking in on that, not just once a year, or not when we need a grant funded, or not when we're trying to do a token hire. We should be checking on that all the time, because if we really use racial equity lenses the way they're supposed to be, more of this will be exposed. And then people like us won't be just put in a box because we're calling out what we see is a systemic racism. So for me, I'm going to keep fighting to dismantle poverty, but everything that I do has to have a racial equity lens, a gender balance. I make sure that I do that. So I'm intentional in how I hire, intentional in how I show up, and intentional in how I show up to do work for nonprofits who often perpetuate the systems we're trying to dismantle. So that's why it's important to have that racial equity lens. And it's something that I'm still growing in and I'm checking myself on. Like, am I saying white is right? Because if this white woman called me and tell me this, and am I really giving her, and just like Brianna didn't get the due diligence and how those warrants were signed. It is so embedded in our system that until we address it at every level, we won't see it end. But it is a lifetime fight.
Absolutely. What's the question again? I'm sorry. I can go on a rant. I don't want to get off key.
Right. How are you showing up for racial justice?
Okay, how am I showing up for racial justice? Okay. Experiencing racism and really learning what racism is about. I will say shout out to Jolly Good Ginger. He's executive director of Families United, but he was raised by racism. His father was a racist, and it just gave me a perspective on the other side of what racism actually looked like and how he escaped it. And we all experience, racism. We have to, a lot of us don't experience it and don't know we're going through it, but you don't know it until you actually experience it, and it really hits you deep because it have you questioning like yourself, like, so it really is. But so I always look at it as it's a white people problem. I'm not gonna beg nobody like me. I care less. But how I show up when it comes to racial justice is bringing awareness to black on black racism, because it's a real thing in our community, and something that we do amongst each other, not just because of the color of our skin, but the levels of in which we was raised, our jobs, our bank accounts. And I don't know why people think like they get to a certain level and think they made it, or feel like since you over here now, you're not a part of the problem, or since something that you don't see, like it doesn't exist. I want to continue to tell our people, black people in particular, stop, just stop. We have to learn how to unify. Fighting for just, listen, y'all, we already got everybody else against us, believe it or not. And when it's time for us to come together, we really need to start showing up in these spaces in our community, because it's not a black and white thing. It's a get rid of these niggas thing. And that's what's coming to us. And I hate to be so harsh and blunt with my words, but it's a real thing. When they start cutting off Medicare and they start cutting our benefits that people think that we getting, and it's not really black people that's benefiting from the shit. But guess what? We're going to be the main one who suffer. Because guess what? We're going to have to work 10 times as harder as the 100% that we push in every day. And it's going to get rough. And we continue to take it out on each other. Instead of showing up in these spaces that we create. And take over. We got to stop letting people whitewash our stuff. And when I mean stuff, I mean our talent, our voices, our programs. Keep it, if we're going to talk about fighting for black lives, keep it black. Stop accepting all money ain't good money.
Say no.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the education that the part of racial justice that I want to be a part of, is continuing to provide an opportunity for black people in our black communities, and teaching them that we have the rights just as well as Bardstown Road. The West End, I can listen, baby. But you know what I mean. You know what I'm getting at. So I want us to start humanizing one another and realize that just this same plastic bag, as you can see, that y'all was paying thousands of dollars for, and they make them in China for $8. You know what I'm saying? You know how hard you had to work to get that Louis Vuitton bag, and you see how much it's worth. Come on, like, let's get back to reality here, y'all. Let's get back to our mission, our purpose, and that's to build generational wealth, like these people are doing right now. So that's what I like to bring to the table.
Yo, oh my bad. Gotcha, good
When
sir.
she sat over here, 'cause I was trying to get him over there.
You know, I gotta follow y'all. So, but no, y'all, you know, every time it's the provocation of thought coming from you good queens. You know, councilwoman, you mentioned you took a course, right? And that activated a different part of your brain that said, hell no, I gotta think different, I gotta act differently. I'm a professor, right? A college professor, and I have the privilege of, you know, they like the supremacists like to call it indoctrination, right? But I have the privilege of exposing young minds to the young and middle-aged and old minds to aspects of history that, again, as we talked about, that have been hidden, right? And so when people coming to this knowingness, there is then, right, that activation of, oh, damn, I got to do something different. I have to work to not just free myself, but other people, those who look like me and those who don't look like me, right? And so, again, that is what people are afraid of. You mentioned something, it'll come back to, you mentioned that it's a white people problem, right? And we know that white people created the construct that is race. And unfortunately, they globalized it, right? So that's the if they see any beauty in white supremacy, it's that they were able to globalize it, right? We have other forms. We've had tribalism, right, across ethnic groups across the world, right? We've had other forms, as Councilwoman has mentioned, of hierarchy and supremacy. But what white people did a great job at is globalizing the whiteness in front of supremacy. And so you mentioned, right, black people, and unfortunately we have internalized that racism. And so what that is translated to then for us is the hopelessness, right? And so if we don't believe in ourselves, if we don't believe that we have anything to live for, well, it's easy to die, and it's easy to off somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And so some of the way, you know, and we all up here show up in 100 ways, but I'll just mention a couple. So, you know, as much as the labor and the burden should be on white people, they're ill-equipped, right? They're miseducated just like everyone else. And so for me, when I'm in space and I am around white people who are hungry for it, I see myself as an activator. So like, yeah, let's activate you. Let's get you to work. Because at the end of the day, they can navigate and they can pull on levers that I will never be able to because of my identities, right? And so shout out to KFTC for providing space for me able to do some of that work statewide and also across the country. Also, shout out to Race Forward, who is an international organization pushing for race justice, social justice across many different forms, who is supporting the work of KFTC and many of us who navigate that lane. Also, going back to what the councilwoman mentioned, right, being in the classroom, something that I've been able to do as a public health researcher is acquire funds. Shout out to the CDC that has been defunded by this current federal administration. But we've been able to acquire funds in the past to hire young people to teach them about racial and ethnic identity development, socio-political development, professional development, community engagement, liberation, socio-political, right? All of the things, right? And so when we talk about that internalized racism, that hopelessness, them being exposed to critical education, liberatory education, had them fall into a consciousness that said, damn, yo, hold on. I can't be fighting you as my fellow brother, my fellow sister, my fellow family member. Like, I got to fight this hierarchy that has put us in this fucked up situation, right? And so what that then translated to was us working with council persons and community members, right? Rep Attica, she remembers us out there fighting against the liquor licenses, for example, Family Dollar, right? So some of our young people identified that as an issue alongside the elected officials and said, like, yo, what can we do? So we talked about a plan, right? An activation plan. Yo, so let's door knock. So they went around the West End neighborhoods door knocking, educating and informing their community members on why this was an issue in their neighborhood, why we didn't need more liquor stores. They also went around to youth serving organizations, educating them on the fact that, right, we talk about violence and the rates, the incidents of violence, interpersonal violence, and how it's inequitably present in West Louisville. Well, what else is inequitably present in West Louisville? Liquor stores, right? And so if you go to the CDC's website and look at the risk factors for interpersonal violence, though one of those risk factors is alcohol and substance use. So why in the hell then, if we're saying violence prevention is a priority for this city, why are there not zoning laws that prevent liquor license applications in certain segments of the city, right? And so anyway, our young people protested, door knocked, educated, and what happened? The Alcohol Board Control ultimately rendered their decision, and they said, yo, we're denying these applications for top two reasons. One being there's an oversaturation of liquor stores in the West End and the South End already, where most of the black and brown people live in the city, and two, because of community resistance, right? And so the young people were like, hold up, damn. Like, we activated, we protested, and it worked, right? And so for them, that set them on a trajectory of like, yo, we actually can organize, we can mobilize, and we can have wins. But what was the catalyst for that, though? The catalyst for that was critical education about systems, right? About hierarchy, about power, oppression, and liberation. And so again, that is why these concepts and these actions are being legislated at the federal, at the state, and at the local levels, because, you know, when we get free, then the minority of the people who are the quantitative minority of people who are in power will lose that power. That's right. So.
Teach.
So before we go on a break, I have a follow-up question for all three of you, but they're different questions. So I want to start with you, Dr. Jackson, specifically this question around how you're showing up for racial justice with the attacks on DEI. How are you still able to show up for racial justice in the higher education setting?
Actually, can we start with somebody else?
Okay,
Let me think about
We're
it.
going to sit with that.
Okay, you want to sit with that? Okay. All right, so Bianca, this question for you is, I'm thinking about everything that's happened recently with Brett Hankinson in particular, and racial justice period for your niece, Brianna. What does racial justice look like in our legal system today when you think about what happened with Brett Hankinson in particular?
I'll give you guys a brief rundown about what happened on July 21st, I believe it was, a Monday, the Brett Hankinson sentencing. I know he was in the news prior to that week. I want to give out some context, right? So after the trial was over, at the end of the trial, the prosecution met with Shameka and the family. We had a discussion with them that moving forward, you know, we knew going into this that Brett Hankinson could possibly spend no days in jail, or he could get up to 8 years. But ultimately, that was going to be up to the judge, right? They also expressed, you know, with the new administration coming up, that a lot of them would probably be fired, resigning, or may find other employment. So going into the sentencing, the prosecution that was representing the families, the victims that day, was new. He was a stranger. Going into the sentencing, I just want people to know that Shameka Palmer was not counseled going into court, right? So we went into court like any other day, because we know past two trials for the several years we've been in and out this courthouse going to trial. So we know how the judge ran her courtroom, and we respected that. You know, we've never had an issue going to court through two trials, mind you. So in particular this day, you know, it was already, of course, the nerves are up, of course. But like I said, the family's focus was just mainly support for Shameka, because today is a day we finally get to have our say-so documented in front of this man that has something to do with the death of Brianna. So it was very important that that Tamika felt supported. She was going to get up and make a statement. Like I said, we wasn't counsel. The family was prepared to come and speak on Brianna's behalf, considering she's the victim. I didn't get to experience that because once again, I was not protesting outside the courthouse. That's not what happened. I don't understand why. There was rallying going on. There was community outside, as if any other day. There was no protest. What happened was an injustice happened, right? Once again, we was restricted from going in the courtroom. So my entire family had issues going in the courtroom, right? So mind you, going in, and you're a part of the prosecution team, you know everybody that work in this courthouse, from the security guards, from the cafeteria, the judges, the lawyers. You've been on every floor. You've never had a problem, an issue, right? And so this day, due process was taken from us, and we was restricted. I went in the courtroom just like I just had my ID. They knew who I was, and it was just that. And he just told me, yeah, the overflow room's full. I don't know what an overflow room is. I've never had to go to an overflow room. I've been in the front row in Rebecca Jennings' courtroom for the past 4 years, front row seat. When I looked to my right, my sister was there. If I looked to my left, my other sister was there. So there's never been an issue about us being able to come in and being accommodated, since we are families of the victims that the prosecution is representing. So once again, I'm going to leave it as this city had an opportunity to make it right, but they chose to humiliate me, take me to jail, and have something to talk about. Because exactly what was the point? What was the point? Like, I was literally targeted. Y'all surrounded me and took me to jail. And if you can see on the video, I thought they were coming to assist me, considering a Louisville water truck company worker decided to ram his truck while he was on the clock through pedestrians in the street. But then you change the narrative like we're protesters. How? When is this city going to get it right? So the unjust is that, once again, we was denied due process, and I will not tolerate it. I will not tolerate any racial-led prejudice, anything. Like, why deny us something? I mean, they denied Kenny Walker. Like, I'm sitting there with Kenny, right? And I don't remember because I blooped out. But before, my memory is I'm sitting here begging these people. I was begging them, please, like, let us up. I'll go up, And I'm like, Kenny's like, I just drove from Texas. I've been waiting to have my moment. I sat out. I've been quiet. And that light switch went off, y'all. It went off. And I don't know what happened after that. I just know I was in jail. You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, wow. So it's a lot to unfold. It's a lot to process. That's why I want to give y'all context of, no, there was no protest. Why would we want to protest in something that we had no control over? We got no control over. Once that judge laid that gavel down and said, what? He got 33 months instead of 1 day? But if it took me to go to jail to get my family in the courtroom, I would do it 10 times again. I'm going to tell you that. I will not tolerate no prejudice and disrespect. When I pay my tax dollars, I've been cordial. I've been trying to be the balance here, be the bigger person, be the one, the level-headed one. Sometimes that doesn't work. You know what I mean? So guess what? I'm left with the consequences, right? Because I have a 12-year-old son who witnessed his mama go to jail. You know what I'm saying? So I have to sit there and explain this to my son. I have a 4-year-old who thinks, her grandmother going to jail. Like this isn't a game for me. When I was in there, they kept calling us the players. Players? Right. So y'all think this is a game. Y'all think this is a joke. Y'all denied me due process. I've been out here boots on the ground, and only been using my voice. Don't make me out to be some criminal that I'm not. I'm not no violent person. I don't walk around with guns. I've never put my hands on nobody. I've never came in your courtroom disrupted. I've never even been in the police chief office. How about that? And you know why? You want to know why? Because I don't got no self-control when it comes to Brianna. So guess what? I keep myself from situations for a reason. You know what I mean? But once again, like I said, this city had an opportunity to make it right. But once again, you tried to make Breonna Taylor, protesters, whatever the fuck y'all want to label us, look bad. And I don't care. I don't care how y'all make me. I'm going to still come back. I'm going to fall a million times. But guess what? Bianca, she's going to get up every time. I promise you. And I'm going to lay down and do my time. Because guess what? I've already made my bed and I'm ready to lay in it. That's what y'all don't realize. So that's why I continue. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to walk. I'm going to continue to walk and talk like I'm untouchable until you put me down.
Well,
that's the quote right there. I already made my bed and I'm going to lay in it. Okay. That's it. Thank you so much.
The right one on the right day, baby.
Yes, the right one on the right day. Councilwoman Parrish-Wright.
I'm supposed to follow that.
Yeah, I know, right? This might be connected.
Okay.
So my question for you is, how are you showing up for racial justice in the policy arena? So you are a Louisville Metro Council person, and policies have implications, like Dr. Trinidad Jackson said. We've worked on policy. We know the racial justice implications. So for you as a sitting council person, how are you showing up for racial justice in the policy arena?
All right. That's actually a great question. As we are here on August 8th, I think it is very important that you ask that question. I first, though, want to address, even if it was labeled protest, even if you're a labeled activist and advocate, those are all legal things. And our Constitution, exactly, one of the biggest policy documents we have, our Constitution turns 250 years old next year. And comparative to other countries, we're kind of like in our teenage stage. We hosted with my other job as executive director of Vocal Kentucky, we hosted the Next 250 conversations, talking about another stab at how to make our Constitution better and interdependence, and thinking about what that looks like. And when I talk to lawyers, they all tell me, Shameka, generally the Constitution is a good document. It's how it's applied. Is it equitable? Is it fair? I have problems with it all, because we are in a country that was built on stolen, conquered land, and people running from their religious oppression decided to plot themselves somewhere else, all the while, as Dr. Jackson said, branding their white supremacy at the same time. And their very essence, the very who they wanted to be, was a protest to what they come from the kings and the monarchies and all those things. So they come here and they more than duplicate. They give us the worst version of what slavery has been and all of the other things. And still, America is still a fairly young country. So I was giving this I was having this Next 250 conversation, and I was talking about policy work and how important it is, because policy should improve and save lives. That's why I ran to be a councilwoman, to bring things that my district has been neglected and to help be a part of policy that saves and improves lives. Because if we're not saving and improving lives, then what are we doing? I'm clearly not in it for the money. It's more headache than it's worth. But I also understand that it's important to have people with direct lived experiences in these positions, because some of our policymakers are disconnected and so caught up with white supremacy that they can't see themselves straight. They can't see themselves out of a bucket. And I literally have told people that I've met people with double master's degrees that and people who are been politicians for years and can't organize a community meeting. So I also believe in organic intellectualism, and I also believe, just like the land, our education, our way of life, our culture has been stolen too. And then they try to sell it back to us in very expensive college books. But to get back to the point, I had this conversation, and I was really trying to meet people where they at, and these are people that are impacted by substances, impacted by homelessness, HIV and AIDS, mass incarceration. And they said to me, how does it apply to me? Why do I care if the Constitution, why do I care about the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th Amendment? How does that show up in my world? And I said, well, kind of look at it like this. America's pretty young. But right now, all these other older, well-established countries like China are looking at America like, look at little America on crack. They busted out laughing. They was like, Shameka, why you say that? I said, look at it. We're spinning out of control. Because we started out and saying we could be the big brother. We could show you the way. And these other more established countries, they have waves of protests and violence and injustice, but then they come back to the center. America has a center because it was stolen. And it still wants to build that center based on capitalism, based on black and brown and poor bodies. So for me, it's my turn. I've been on this thing that while it's my turn, I need to do my part. I will tell you, I had to grow in my policy work because I was all about the protest and the advocacy. Yeah. And then I learned during the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement, because I always got to say Breonna Taylor's name. I said, if we don't do something, they're going to use this movement against us, and they're going to run these Maturian candidates who are not going to bring us the justice that we deserve. Your family deserves. Too many names. So many people came to me and their story never got the light that Breonna's story got, right? And they said, what about us? So we're working on things that would have been, that should have been, could have been, and we have an opportunity as elected officials to do something right now that's tangible. And so for me, as you know, and you all know, working on the People's Consent Decree was a part of that. Yes, it's a resolution, but it identifies a moment in time where we said, hold up, what are we doing? What have we done? Now you see how important that was. And I told many of the allies, they were like, the DOJ is going to save us. If you look at it, the DOJ is the top of policing. Mm-hmm. I need enforcement because that's the only way I know how to process. So how much am I going to dismantle enforcement? For the world, for the will of the people. So I don't need everybody hating police. I need to show that we're doing something. So you come in and you give us hope, and a lot of people false hope that you're going to make those changes, and then you drop it. What I do want to say is in the case of Breonna Taylor, that judge was at a fork in the road as well.
Yes, but I would say if it wasn't for her or Tamika in that courtroom that day, yes, nobody was fighting for Bree.
Yes, ma'am.
No, and after I got a chance to speak to her the next day and just kind of talk about what happened in the courtroom and stuff, I was like, listen, I thank God that it was a blessing. It was a blessing. It was a blessing. And I will say even the start of the Justice Breonna Taylor movement back in 2020, I can remember we started the no-knock warrant, legislation chain, and I was traveling getting that passed, and I actually got it passed in Virginia. I got it passed in California. So, just to start that and be able to, have something of her legacy to push forward, like flowers, to you all, especially Senator Couture Herring at the time. And just even, just to be in these spaces, y'all, I would say it's not easy as Black women to be in these spaces because you have to experience it. Even going to my first Metro Council meeting, right? I was like a little mouse. Like I didn't really. I just wanted to see the atmosphere, how it is compared to other states, because I had an opportunity to go to other states and present and show up, but not here. And the you can cut the tension with a knife.
Yes, ma'am.
I was so uncomfortable. I was like, is it a black side and a white side? Is it like, I didn't know I was appalled, and I was just like, wow. Going to Frankfurt, like that is intimidating. Like I take my hats off to the people who are in this system, happen to be you know be a voice for us. So I really take my hats off and just experience that it's not easy. I will contest to that.
So what she spoke about is the protest to policy change. What I don't want to do is us to be demonized because we choose to be advocates and we choose to protest, because that is how a lot of these policies are born. Right. And so as policymaker, as you know, as a former state representative, it is it's the next level of it, right? I believe in a multifaceted approach in everything, in education, in advocacy, in faith, in all the things we do, because we have different voices right here now in this Goodwill Opportunity Center who will hear a piece of legislation and see it differently, because how does that show up at their door? Yes. What does it look like when their mama is dealing with it, or when young boys are being accosted just for standing up and looking black enough, right? So how does that policy show up? So it's our job as electeds that do policy to make sure that we're doing this in a no harm way, so for the greater good. So, and when people say, oh, you just care about black people, yes, I care especially about black people, but I'm a person who cares about the human rights of all. And so when we think about who we are and how we show up in the world, we're showing a terrible representation of that. And because of that, we got to have elected people who are willing to go against the grain, as we saw Representative Scott do. And we have to have people who are within these systems challenging it. And so with the judge could have went in the direction that it was expected to go. That judge will give heat for that, like political heat. I used to work on judicial campaigns, and I watched the trajectory of those campaigns and those seats for 8 years and lifetime appointments mean that they're in a pivotal role for decision making, and that decision making depends on the law, which can be interpreted by who's interpreting it, which you need better judges. Because if I come in here and with just a prosecutorial lens, hammered and seized nails, then I got people in front of me that I can never connect or identify with. When I'm making those decisions, I'm not thinking about what's next. I'm not thinking about how that will show up in that community, because once you take this black man away or this black woman away from her community, who's getting the kids to the daycare? Who's doing this? Oh, and then we say, oh, there's not enough people out here. The kids are got violence. Well, there's not enough examples of people who've been there and done that to show them, because you keep them imprisoned and you keep them down and you keep your foot on their neck that they can't show up in community. So while it's my job to be it as a policymaker, I'm looking at all those things, but I had to get to know the lay of the land. If I was a white male with privilege that was rich, it will be easier for me to get all my policies across. That's just the way it is. And if any of my council colleagues are watching this, they know it's true. We have people making decisions for our whole city that live in parts of the county and city that will never have to come down here. They would never have to come to Goodwill, but they'll make a decision and say, oh, this is what them black people need. But yet in Anchorage, when I was running for mayor, and I went to all the different council meetings because I wanted to talk to them about city merger and all of that, they said, oh, yeah, overnight, we only have 2 police officers, sometimes 1. So I think about when they talk about how to stop violence, how to end violence, and the most resourced communities are not the most over-policed communities. Yes. But they think that if they over-police us, that's the only path forward. So I literally just had, with a policy decision and how I've been standing up for our people, I said that our chief needs personal and professional development. That just because you've been a cop for 18 years don't mean you're ready to be chief and work on community and police relationships. I sat and watched Deputy Mayor David James in a conversation. They were talking about things they need to be doing. He's a former cop, former FOP, former all those things. And he was talking, he said, yeah, and when we see this, he was talking like a police officer. Just like, I think is it Representative Stivers or Senator Stivers? Senator. Some of the people that are at our state level are former police officers. But in that role, you're not a police officer, sir or ma'am. You're here for a community, and you're here to make policies that improve the community, not just the police. And that is the problem. They get to keep that same lens. And as he said, we show up for 100 things. I have to change clothes and change gears, and when I'm dealing with different parts of my community, but we say, oh, because this chief has been a police officer for 18 years, we just pop him in this position and he's ready. And then we wonder why he makes those cold blanket statements that he would never make about a white woman drinking bourbon on Main Street. And so that's why the policy piece has to be sealed in, and you have to have policymakers that listen to community connected. Now, I can't do everything the community gives to me. Every policy piece is not something that I can do. But what we do is, it's our job, just like I said, as organizers, it's our job to distill that and to be that resource. So I can say, yes, you want to make sure all trash cans are green. We have to make sure we do this in a different way. Maybe we can talk to the recycle company. So it's like you find workarounds to get the best policy for people. And that's what I'm trying to be while it's my turn. So I'm engaging, learning, growing in my policy work. I had great examples watching my friend on that merry-go-round every 2 years, and people's like, you want to be state rep? No, I don't want to run for office every 2 years, because the first year you're doing this and then you're trying to get these done. So I ran for a 4-year seat to invoke a vision that brings better policies to save and improve lives. And so these 4-year seats are very pivotal, and 8-year seats, and like I talked about with the judicial seats, you need the right person in there, and that person still needs an accountability circle and a community to keep them, because you get, like I watched my friend I helped become judge, you become isolated, and you're not, so you need to be checking in with community, because now you got to make this decision that will change a city, that would change a person's life, and that our young people are watching. I want them to be policymakers too. So that's why I'm doing this in a very bold way, because I want them to say, I should be a council person because I can help make better policy. I hope I answered all of it.
You did, Councilwoman, and I appreciate you.
Bianca helped me.
She did. I love that's how it's supposed to be. It's a conversation. Yes. So before we go on break, I want to go to Dr. Jackson and I want to remind the audience, the question is, in this day and age, with the attacks on DEI, particularly in higher education, Dr. Jackson, how are you showing up for racial justice in that higher education environment?
So I want to say, everybody sitting on this panel today has been attacked personally and professionally. And that includes me, right? So on a personal front, and also my work has been under attack for years. And so I think all of us up here sit in a certain divine consciousness and confidence about ourselves that no matter what happens, no matter what opposition that we face, we will never cower. And so, I'm sitting in the throes of that every day when I'm in a community, but also as I am navigating classroom and curriculum space. And so beautiful thing about what I'm teaching, I have been impacted, so some of my work and resources for my work have been rescinded, but nevertheless, right, as a educator, one of the beautiful things about being a public health doctor is I get to dig across disciplines to dig up facts that speak to something that public health touts itself on, which is a world moving towards social justice and health equity. And so earlier, right, I referenced NWA saying, fuck the police. Well, why were they and their communities and our communities saying that? Because of predatory policing. Well, what happened after the Ferguson uprising and after Baltimore uprising and after so many cities, right, that have come after 20 14, right, there have been Department of Justice reports saying, hey, guess what? Predatory policing exists, right? So we have the police saying, hey, police, have been terrorizing, murdering, and controlling the movement of communities, especially black and poor and, mentally ill communities across many of our cities in America. And that you had me bugging up, by the way, when you said America on crack. Because, that's the symptomology, right? But right, so I think about that, those types of things, right? Those types of domains we get to explore. So whether it's the criminal legal system, the food system, the environmental system, the housing system, the education system, across all of these systems, right? It is those of us who have been structurally marginalized for generations, past and present, still directly impacted, and still fighting to lead across these systems, still fighting to disrupt and dismantle systems that are no longer serving us, right? And instead, what do? We have a number of inept people in leadership positions who are telling us to stand down. And so that is a lot of what I'm navigating right now, and many of the systems that I'm working within is inept leaders who have not experienced they have not, whether it's protest or the policy perspective, they haven't been in the throes of the socio-political analyses that say this is what we need to do to respond to this federal landscape, to respond to this state landscape, to respond to this local landscape related to anti-DEI and everything that entails. Yet they're making decisions that negatively impact me, negatively impact my students, negatively impact my communities. And so, the work doesn't change for me. I will continue doing the work. Again, we'll never cower. Divinely protected, and ultimately, right, that is why they keep coming for us in a number of strategic and tactical ways, because we're not standing down. And so, I just want to say, to us up here and to everybody else out there, the more that we continue to stand up, the more that we, will be in winning positions.
That's a great way to end that.
That's a wonderful way to end it. I got to reiterate what Dr. Jackson said. You are looking at a row of people who refuse to cower.
That's right.
That's so powerful. And then what Councilwoman Parrish-Wright said about this being her turn and she doing everything that she can while it's her turn. That's so important, right? Because first of all, I believe that we should have term limits at every level. I know it makes my own political party mad.
Term limits.
Yes, thank you. Because as many people as possible should have their turn.
That's right.
Because they can make changes that we may never have even thought about. But thank y'all again for tuning in. We're going to take a break and we're going to close it out. Here's the thing. I really want this conversation to keep going until it's time to celebrate the right one. But I know these folks have things to do. We just do a whole marathon.
Food and water.
Yes. Well, we're at Black Coffee, so that's covered. Yeah, right. But we'll be right back after this break.
Hi, my name is Sydney. I am with Healthy Beginnings Connect Us. Here we advocate for maternal health rights, postpartum support, and we also combat maternal and infant mortality.
Hey, I know you're watching the live stream right now, but I want to take a moment to tell you to check out this new book right here over my shoulder. Believe me, it'll be worth it.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Ask Attica, our special 8th of August edition with our guest, Councilwoman Shameka Parrish-Wright, Bianca Austin, and Dr. Trinidad Jackson. So we're going to close this out, y'all, because these folks have things to do. So this question is about this time next year, 8th of August, 2026. Where would you like to see Louisville a year from now, or how would you like to see Louisville be different on the 8th of August, 2026? And anyone can start.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I know you. She is so amazing. She sent the questions, and I just was like, oh, I saw the first two. So I'm not prepared for this question, but I will say next year is a pivotal year. It's midterm election. It's the midterm elections. We also have the mayor is running to be reelected. So I imagine by this time next year we'll have whoever these will we would have passed the primary, so we will have two choices left because it is open primary, so it's open, and so the top two vote getters will be moving through. Louisville is still a mayor-strong city. And no mayors can't solve everything. Just like the president is doing things that is way beyond his wheelhouse and it hasn't even been court tested, we are experiencing similar things with this mayor. There's an agenda that doesn't have all of the people in Louisville engaged. And so I would hope that by this time next year, we would have a candidate that emerges that is really listening to the people. Here's the thing. We've done the corporate business thing for a very long time. To run for mayor, it costs $50 to file, and then you have to get 3 signatures. To become a state rep, isn't it $500? Or congressional is so the mayorships were set up for mediocre white rich businessmen to be in those positions, shuffling through the people who got steering wheels in their backs for those positions. That is the honest truth. I didn't make it up. I'm not hating because I lost the primary in 2022. But what I'm telling you is that the mayorship is such a strong role until Frankfurt rolls it back. And, some places they've reduced the abilities of a mayor. But the mayor and the city council both have the ability. The mayor is not stronger than the city council. It is to manage with the city council, the laws, the legislation, the policy that we as a council pass. So I want a people's budget that is derived from the people that should come out of that for this time next year. We should have a people's budget approved. And if the mayor can't submit a budget that is centered on the people, then we as council need to do our own. All odd seats of Louisville Metro Council are up. That includes mine. And I think that we should have candidates in those seats ready for those seats that are ready to listen. We've done it this other way for hundreds of years. We are no better just by doing it the business way. Business is a part of this. Business is an arm of community. It cannot run things just like the enforcement arm should not be in control of our whole city. The enforcement arm has a role. I'm not saying that we don't need all these entities. I'm saying it's unequitable the amount of power and control that they have over the city. I'm hoping by next August 8th, the people realize the power in their vote, in their protests, in their advocacy, in their showing up, and them speaking out, whether it's op-eds and policy pieces or faith leaders. This is not a time for faith community to go in a different direction. Faith community is centered, has always been centered around social justice and those issues because it ties back to the theories of faith. In my role, everybody has a responsibility and a job to improve Louisville and to improve Kentucky. Faith people who work in systems, people from academia, people from all points of our work. Because if we don't start advocating and speaking up, we won't have the things we need. And the last thing I'll say, too many of you who are tied to nonprofits and this whole nonprofit industrial complex think that you can't advocate, you can't lobby, you can't participate in what's best for the community because you're worried about the retaliatory nature of our city government. And I won't lie to you, it is very retaliatory. They love to shut you down, but we have the numbers to stop that. If we come together, you find organizing homes. You heard of KFTC, Vocal Kentucky, ACLU, all these amazing organizations, and Forward Justice Action Network, and so many other organizations across the state and this city are doing the meaningful work. Connect to them, support them, because that's how you build the people power and the community organizing that it's going to take. You're worried about making a statement against something that is wrong, like them trying to do away with Sanctuary City, and you can't speak up. If they come for one of us, they're coming for all of us. Don't wait till it's too late. Step out. And if you are somebody who are stuck in the system, I can't employ you, so keep your job. But there's still legal things and workarounds that you can do to help us with this movement. That's where I'm at. Are you activated? Are you motivated? And are you ready to really bring the changes that we need? Or do you want to go back to slavery? I would hope by next August 8th, the decision would be, I want to do better and I never want to go back to slavery.
Oh, this time, well, just to piggyback on Shameka, and becoming my role as a community organizer with Families United is part of the reason I've started Families United was just to kind of fill the gaps of service. I just noticed, like, over if we continue to do the same programs over the same, we get the same results. So my role is to just fill in like different things. I want to kind of meet our kids on their level these days and just find ways that we can entertain them and just find the importance in them, not the importance in them, but just show them that they are important, their words are important, and they don't need permission to be active, right? They just need a conversation, and that show people that there are genuine people in the movement, right? I just tell people all the time, I don't owe Louisville anything. I'm not from here. You know what I'm saying? I moved here to try to start a better life for our family, to find jobs. I always thought Louisville was up and coming. It's the dirty South, Southern comfort. I just love the community here, and I just think we've become family, after Breonna was murdered, and I'm just hopefully next year is to just continue to grow, and even just on August Day, hopefully we can continue this conversation, maybe add to it, make it a community day, whatever we need to do to stay active in the movement. I'm committed to that.
Yep. So what I'm I'm hoping that I get the vision and experience in here in different rooms, power rooms, and in different communities, something that I wasn't alive to experience, which was the Rainbow Coalition. You know what I'm saying? We had the Black Panthers, influencing Asian Americans and Puerto Ricans and even Southern white people who were coming up out of their racism to say, oh, damn, this really is an attack on race and class, right? And so how do we align, to build power, to build ownership of our outcomes in order to thwart oppression, right? And so for me, it's simple. That's what I want to feel. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to see. That's what I want to taste. That's what I want to touch. Like all you smack it up, flip it, rub it down. You know what I'm saying? But that, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully in a year we get a little bit more closer to that. And one of the things that I think that, that is actually catalyzing us towards that moment again is the fact that so many executive orders and so many policies are now touching people who thought they were untouchable, right? And so within these institutions and within communities, whether they were poor communities or whatever, right? Somebody up here mentioned engaging with community, as I think you were talking about over the Rhine and poor white people. I was doing research when a couple of years into Louisville, doing research in a particular community here, and they, and what their responses, live and in living color, to some of the research prompts were, I grew up knowing that, I'm white and I'm poor, but at least I'm not black, And so it wasn't until they went to the military and they were forced to engage and intermingle with black people that they learned that, damn, like y'all are just human, right? Like, damn, y'all are regular people, right? But before that moment, right, they grew up, they were socialized and conditioned to think, these are subhuman people. They do not, they don't have birthrights, right? They don't have personhood. And so for me, the closer that we get to all of us understanding and valuing humanity, understanding and valuing power and activating it in ways that, will continue to move us closer to the constant struggle that is freedom, right? Throwing Angela Davis in the mix. Constant struggle, right? And so that's something that we can't say like, oh, we made it, like you said, right? Oh, we made it, or I made it to a certain milestone or dashboard metric and we good. Nah, this needs to be a way of life for us. And so if we can feel that fabric, I'll be happy.
Yes, way
You
of
can't
life.
buy your way out of racism, and the distraction from capitalism is that we think we can buy our way out. But if you don't have, even with resources, you can over resource something, but if you don't have the decision making to match those resources, it will perpetuate inequity. So I think our folks, and I come from the struggle, worker bee, working class, and I under all entry level positions for a very long time. So I understand when you can't see next year. So this is a perfect question, because when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about next year. You're thinking about, can I get through this week? Can I get through this month? But we need people to know life is longer than you think it is if you live long enough. So while you here, if you're waking up and it's your turn, then there's ways that you can be engaged in social justice and social change. Find the ways to connect. It's every role ain't for everybody, but you can find the ways to connect. The academia lens is so important because it reaches masses and masses of people. The reality is that none of our work, none of the groups that we talk about, or even these other biggest groups, have most people engaged in the work. So there is gaps in our work that we need to work on, but find the way that you can do it. Organizing is the way forward, and I'm so inspired by listening to both of them, because everything they're talking about is organizing.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that, y'all. So this last question is actually going to be timed 1 minute, because then we're going to be done. I really do value and respect y'all's time.
Over an hour.
I'm telling you, she's right. She's right. Yes. So it's a stretch. This is a stretch for me. Appreciate all of your responses to that question, because you're right, Councilwoman. You know, oftentimes we are in survival mode and trying to just make it through but trying to make it through the next day. And many of us will be here a year from now. Mm-hmm. So what do we want? We should be thinking about and envisioning what we want this city to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, etc. So while we are recognizing and honoring the 8th of August today, we are also in a time that's very heavy and can be very hard for a lot of people. So this last question, timed 1 minute response: how are you maintaining your peace? And anyone can start. As soon as you start, I'll push the timer.
I'll start. And we can go down. We can end with that bass, that Dr. Jackson voice. I ain't gonna say Barry White, Dr. Jackson. Dr. Jackson, if you ask them, right? So just coming off of 10-day vacation, I learned that if I don't unplug, if I don't travel, I don't really take a break. I'm available and I'm accessible because I care, and I feel like, and it could be my heart condition that I feel like, well, I got to make every moment count. But it was also survival that said, do everything you can while you can, because you don't, waiting for that other shoe to fall. And so that's why I can speak about survival and thriving. I'm just now embracing thriving here in my late 40s. What does it mean to thrive? And the same tools it took to survive are different than what it takes to thrive. So my thriving means make sure I do take the time out, take the vacation. Y'all, I do so much for so many people. I'm now awkward with extra time. So I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? And I try to fill the time. My minute's up. Go from, understand what mode you're in and try to move yourself from surviving to thriving. Show up for yourself, take them vacations, and travel abroad.
Yeah. I think a lot of us feel like we're always in survival mode, whether it's being, trying to get the bills paid, going to work, trying to, get the kids, school starting back. These past couple months, just experiencing like a lot of just life be lifing, you know what I mean? And how things aren't aligning up for you the way you thought they were, or you was expecting this, or, you're whatever it is. You have to learn how to give yourself grace. I'm the type of person, I'm a reactor, right? I'm a problem solver. So I always, like, if something, I want the problem to be solved immediately. Like, just kill it, versus sometimes that's not always the case, right? And then just take yourself out, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. A lot of times we judge people and don't know what size shoes they wear, or, they might not be their shoes and they trying to fill somebody else's shoes. So just give each other grace. Give yourself grace. And always, our kids, like, I'm so super. I can't stand them, but I love kids. Like they give me so much joy. So I take that and just because they're so innocent. Just embrace them. Just if you gotta eat a Twinkie, find something to make you happy. Whatever kind of self-care that just gets you through the day. Just take a minute and give yourself some grace.
Well said, Grace.
She straight got that alarm on. Yo, so I'm an Aquarius, and so I think shout out to my pet. And it's funny, Rep, because sometimes I meet people and they be like, "Oh, what's your?" I'll be Aquarius. They be like, "Oh, Attica's an Aquarius." I be like, "What's that mean? That's loaded." But yeah. But we natural, like we humanitarians, right? We hold all the water. Everybody needs water to live. You know what I'm saying? That type of time. And so I only get to unplug when I leave this country. Coincidentally, that's the only time where I don't have asthma symptoms, allergy symptoms, neck aches, back aches, all that. So, in a sense, being here is slowly killing me and many others. But I haven't been on a vacation like that since 2019, pre-COVID. And so I attempted to go last year, but that hurricane that hit the eastern coast, that was at the same time that I was supposed to depart, so I didn't make that. Got my minute. But so right now I'm living vicariously through the councilwoman. But real talk though, I try to manage my peace, right? I see souls and I see spirits when I engage with people. And so I try to mitigate and manage, to what extent I'm letting energies penetrate my spirit and my soul. And I'm also, dedicated and heavily entrenched and immersed in my spirituality. So that keeps me grounded. Even when I can't get away, I still can, in essence, feel like I'm away. So
Powerful. Yes.
I love it, y'all. Thank you so much. Listen, this was how you show up on the 8th of August. I love the conversation, and I really appreciate y'all. Thank you to everybody who tuned in to this week's episode of Ask Attica with our guests, Councilwoman Shameka Parrish-Wright, Bianca Austin, and Dr. Trinidad Jackson. As always, thank you to Black Coffee for providing the space for us. Oh, well, hold up. What we getting? We're good. Okay. Woo! Yeah, holla! Yeah. That's right. Oh, yeah. Yes, he does. I love it. And that's how we are here, right? This is the organic that we talked about. Look at Emery Scott Lee over there wondering what's going on. But yes, thank you to Black Coffee for providing the space. That's what community business responsibility to community looks like, and commitment to community, really. And of course, always thank you to Stay Live Streams for producing and hosting on Facebook and YouTube Live. Woo, 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 woo. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time. Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on State Live Streams.
We will continue to provide updates as we have more information.
And you're joining me today on State Live Stream.